Well, hello there. I'm Chad Craig, and this is Money Mindsets Matter. And remember, if you're not preparing, you're not prepared. And if money doesn't matter, then what's the matter? And statistically, whether people are conscious of it or not, they're feeling the weight and the matters of money. And about 80+%, when surveyed, say that financial issues or the financial reality of their life, or if you call it financial stress, 80% of people when surveyed saying they feel the weight of that. And so money, mindsets matter. Thanks for being here this episode. Hey, look, I haven't asked you every episode, but I do want to this one. If you haven't already subscribed to us on YouTube, we'd appreciate it. Hit the like. It helps. There's so many people that need and desire the content and how we are serving people like yourself. And by you doing that, it helps the algorithms and things get to them. And so thank you again. Thanks to those listening via podcast. God bless you. Well, a couple things. If this is your first time here, I do want to do something that I do occasionally, and that is if you're not right with your Creator, and you don't know ultimately your purpose in life, I want to refer you to my first book, Divine Design for Discipleship, and as a resource to serve you in that. And we also have all the teachings of this book filmed professionally, where it's accessible on any platform, your smartphone or iPad or computer, any device, where there's hours and hours of me teaching through that content. You can go to divinedesignfordiscipleship.teachable.com, divinedesignfordiscipleship.teachable.com, and you will see the different phases and courses you can enroll in, and it'll be a blessing to you. Secondly, I want to say and use language I haven't used yet on any episode. If not just you're not sure about your relationship with your Creator, but if you claim to be a Christian, okay, or involved in the church, but you really don't know fully biblical Christianity, I want to encourage you to check this out. If I were to ask you, what was the mystery that God was working towards and accomplished through Jesus? What does the Bible say the summary of that mystery was? If you don't know that, I encourage you, get the book, do the outlines. We want you to know biblical Christianity and the power of what your Creator's done for you. So check that out, all right? I also want to say, if you are an overseer or a leader of a nonprofit, I'd love for you to reach out to me. I'd love to share with you of how our wealth strategy and how a specifically designed whole life contract, whole life policy with the mutual company can actually help your nonprofit. For those who feel the ongoing pressure or have the responsibility of constantly raising funds, please reach out to me. I'd love to share with you how even the infinite banking concept can be a blessing to you. I encourage you as well, if you haven't already, to read R. Nelson Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, the founder of the infinite banking concept, and it will help move you forward faster and getting out of the common noise regarding money and finances and discover what's really happening and your needs, and how what we're talking about here on Money Mindsets Matter and what R. Nelson Nash talked about solves that. All right. Lastly, before I get into this episode, if you're interested in what it would be like being an agent with us and with our insurance agency, I'd love to speak with you. I'd love to talk to you, no matter what state you're in. We can serve clients, in your state, and love to speak with you if you're interested in that. Just message us or find us on our webpage, or there's scheduling link there on our Instagram at Money Mindsets Matter. You can set up a clarity call. Love to talk with you. See you then. Well, this is season 2, episode 11. And last episode, episode 10, we looked at OPM. Now, we titled it OPM because in the financial world and content creation, a lot of books and financial books, you hear that phrase, other people's money. And so we titled lesson 10, OPM, other people's money, imagination. And of course, in that context of what we're really talking about is the other people's money is the money of the mutual company that we're a part owner with, okay? And so it's not other people's money in the sense of stealing or taking money that we don't have a right to. We're talking about, we use that phrase and how something that is a mantra in the content creation and financial world speaks to the power of you creating your banking system and the power of infinite banking concept when using a specifically designed whole life dividend paying whole life contract with the mutual company, all right? And we talked about how now we can deploy from the general fund of the mutual company that we're part owner with, we can deploy cash to go find and make more cash, okay? And we looked at different ways. And of course, the imagination, sky's the limit. Even now, the sky literally is the limit when you have new IPO offerings, if you're into the stock market, and with the different space exploration and shuttles and rockets and things taking place. So there's all types of ways to deploy capital in order to make more capital. But this episode, episode 11, I want to continue how we're looking at changing one thing, or where your money goes first, or where you put your money, how changing that one thing purchases you so many benefits and answers so many problems all of us face when it comes to monetary matters or money mindsets that matter that we need to be aware of and answer, okay? And so that, if you've not listened or followed, I encourage you to go back, but that was episode 9 that we started that list. Then episode 10, we took the last point of that list, which was the OPM. And we spent all last episode looking at deploying the liquidity of your banking system, okay, and possible ways through imagination or through what you know. You know, it's a wise thing to invest in what you know, what you're learning. And we looked at ways that you could do that. So we're going to pick up on that of other benefits and other problems that putting your money in a specially designed whole life dividend paying with the mutual company solves. OPM, remember, represented that your need for capital is always greater than your current access to it. And that's the power of this system, that long term, your cash on cash return begins to explode in percentages. And you get access to a greater amount of capital than you've put into your system, which means now you have access to, again, other people's money, not money that you worked for, but by you making a wise decision in your overall financial world and purchasing a dividend-paying whole life contract with the mutual company provides you, okay? How those dollars provide you with that benefit. And so that, the OPM, right, is your got access to more capital than you started with. All right? It's basically what we were saying is a benefit of this banking mentality. The sixth thing I want to mention, and again, this is continuing from the list that we started in episode 8, is when you think about our money, we want it to go into a place that is safe. And what I mean by safe is that it has guaranteed protection. So what good is it if we have all these other benefits in our banking system that it gives us, answering money problems, like we need a rate of growth on our money, we need a uninterrupted compounding rate of growth. Like, what good are those benefits if, in the end, the whole system or all the money and all the growth of our money isn't safe or have guaranteed protection? Meaning, free from judgments, protected, okay? This does that. And so it is a place to warehouse our capital, and it is safe, and it comes with guaranteed protection. All right? This brings us to the next benefit of a banking mentality that leads to you choosing to own your own whole life contract, dividend paying with a mutual company, is we need our money when it grows, and when it's growing at a guaranteed rate, and when it's growing at a guaranteed uninterrupted rate, and even when we then still have access to the value of that money, we need our money, and we need a place for some of our money, if not all of our money, to grow tax free or deferred. Meaning the money there, as it grows each year, it's growing tax free. See, other vehicles, if you have money growing in some type of savings vehicle with an institutional bank or in a CD, okay, the interest earned yearly triggers a taxable event. And so you'll get a INT, interest, 1099 interest from the institution, from the bank at the end of the year for taxes, meaning there's a tax liability on the interest that was earned that year. This is not like that. All the growth in this place, okay, in your banking system grows tax-free, where there is no yearly, okay, tax bill from the growth on it. The reason why then we say, though, it's growing tax-deferred is that if you were to break or not do what you said you were going to do when you invited the mutual company to manage your unilateral contract, meaning the contract that you own and your money, and you're asking them to put it into work, okay? That if you break what you said you were going to do, you can trigger some tax consequences, okay? But it grows tax-free. If you do what you said you were going to do and you understand all the aspects of your unilateral contract, then it's deferred and you won't trigger taxes as well. Now, when it comes to taxes, it's important, if you're already invested in the market and things like that, that you begin to think long term. Remember, he who's not preparing is not what? Prepared. Think about this. So you're going to get if it's still around, which they'll have to somehow bail it out because so many people depend on our nation. But Social Security, which as of now, the projection is it to run out, well, the filming of this episode, I think the last projection was within 10 years or less. But if you get Social Security income, okay, when you choose to take it, hit retirement age, whether early retirement or you get your full Social Security check, here's what's interesting, is they send you a Social Security check, but the Social Security check is taxed. Social Security income is taxed. So that so-called benefit gets diminished by taxes. So at the same time, if you're going to, in a distribution phase of life, distribute some of your 401k or take distributions or even forced distributions once you get to a certain age from an IRA or something like that, well, all of that as well produces taxable events. Well, if you go back to last episode and the OPM, or you utilize your access to more capital and you use the liquidity pool and you deploy money to buy other businesses or to buy real estate or things like that, well, even in the culturally retirement years, you still have assets that's bringing more money back to you. Now, as for me and my household, because of our journey, is in the beginning when the Lord spared my life and I surrendered to the Lordship of Jesus and He called me to serve His people, I basically turned away from focusing on business endeavors and trying to deploy a lot of money and make a lot of money. I began to focus those years just on growing in the Lord and serving God's people. Well, now that I've done that over 25 years of serving God's people and discipling God's people, that's reached a point in time where now part of my serving people is to help them in their money mindsets and why it matters, to think through long term, to prepare for legacy, to prepare for later in life, to help nonprofits and other churches and other missionaries and other church planners, a church planner like me, to realize there's a better financial way, a banking system they can put in place that takes the pressure off of having to raise money every year and things like that. But I say all that to say that I plan on having more cash flowing to me more and more each year, okay? So I'm not seeking to plan that in the culturally retirement years, I'm going to have less capital flowing to me. No, because if I use OPM and deploy it to go buy other cash-producing assets, then those assets are going to continue to send money to me even as I get older. What that means is you got to consider tax consequences. So people that are already there, if you're a business owner, if you're a high-income earner, or you could be young, you could be an entrepreneur, and you created a tech company, and you already have high cash flow and high income coming in, and you got large tax consequences you're already facing. This also solves putting your money in a place that helps with the tax issue. Because the question comes, and it's a biblical phraseology question, but would you rather pay taxes on the seed or the harvest? Would you rather pay taxes on the seed or the harvest? Well, if you're seeing clearly, got a right money mindset and thinking clearly, you would rather pay as much as you could, as often as you could, where your money is, on the seed than the harvest. In fact, when my wife and I started and planted the church that we oversee, I spent months, the beginning messages, serving people on teaching on seed time and harvest. And when it comes to taxes, I'd rather pay taxes on the seed than the harvest. I'd rather pay taxes on one apple than that one apple, the seeds in that apple leads to 100 apples. Okay? So this begins to provide a solution when it comes to the whole tax consequences and thinking through tax implications now and in the future. All right? Next, number 8 of a problem that this banking mentality and this system that you control and you put into play for your life or your family or your business, for your nonprofit. The next one that this solves is it provides you with options, flexibility. Now, obviously, when we talk about he who's not preparing is not prepared, there obviously is a limitation, right? Because none of us completely see and know every variable of the future. So when it comes to money, obviously it's wise to plan. In fact, I'll read Proverbs 12:24, Spirit of Wisdom, the book of Proverbs, and the Bible says, the hand of the diligent will rule, but the lazy man will be put to forced labor. If you want to be forced into scenarios that you don't like, that removes liberty and options, well, that's what laziness or passivity or a lack of preparing causes. But the diligent, the one who prepares and has a healthy money mindset and wisdom, will rule. There will be a level of creating a sense of options and flexibility, of not feeling passive or not feeling like there's no options, of feeling like circumstances or the variables when it comes to money and life are overwhelming you. No, this provides options and flexibilities that help when unknown things of the future of life arises. Why is that? Well, in your banking system, there's so many options and flexibility. So many options and flexibility. For instance, you can change when and how you put in and store money into your system. So maybe you started off annually, but you hit a year where there's some transitions, maybe in a business or maybe something that you're not sure exactly how it's going to work out. And so you can choose to then monthly put money little by little into your system instead of one larger yearly payment or premium. If cash flow for one reason or another change for a couple months or for 1 year, well, you have dividend election. You can elect to have the dividends that are declared, and then every dividend that's declared is guaranteed. Once it's declared, it can't ever be taken from your system and continues to compound and grow. If you've been using it to buy up more paid up addition, okay, in your contract, but you can elect for 1 year to take those dividends and not buy up more, okay, and make your system strong, but you can direct it to help pay the premium for that year, okay? Flexibility. Worst case scenario, you get to a place, and I don't know why you do it. I've never thought through a scenario why it would need to be done because there's so many other options and flexibilities. But worst case, You say year 10, year 15, year 20. You want to take out even everything you put in it, or you wanted to stop your whole banking system for some odd reason. Well, guess what? It's a unilateral contract. And so you always know what the surrender value of your banking system, your contract is. And you can do that, and you'll get the check of that full amount of what it is. There's all types of options. Or you need a little more space for a year or two. Well, guess what? Take a policy loan. Use the access to more capital and allow that capital to provide some breathing room for a year or two. It provides options and flexibility. That's the key. Let me tell you this. So as the filming of this episode, foreclosures are rising. Okay, rising fast. Not to the GFC, global financial crisis level, but it's trending in that direction. Well, guess what? Foreclosures, you don't have options, because when you sign the loan with that bank, that institution, the terms of that agreement are set. There's not flexibility in it. Okay? You miss a payment, miss 2 payments, 3, you're going in forbearance, right? Period of grace, catch up, no, it's being turned over, foreclosure, okay? There's no flexibility in that sense. This gives you all kinds of options and flexibility as a place to store your money, okay? So it's a great asset to have. This one banking mentality, or a banking mentality joined with this one asset, solves so many problems when it comes to money and life. Options and flexibility. Number 9, ties into the last two, 7 and 8, tax-free access. Meaning, if my money each year is growing, guaranteed interest, guaranteed rate of interest, guaranteed compounding rate of interest. Then on top of that, the companies will use declared dividends every year for the last 100 years. Growing tax-free. But when I access the value or the liquidity, okay, of my system, it's tax-free access. That's powerful. Because most other financial vehicles like that, when you access it, money, there's penalties, or there is what? There's taxes. So I sold yesterday a swing trade that I've held for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. And I was fine with the percentage of profit and gain, but guess what happens? That gain's still going to be taxed, right? So I had a liquidity event of selling, but it also created a tax liability, okay? Of course, if you have losses, then it can offset that and all that. But the power of this system is I have peace of mind knowing that I have, as a banking mentality, I have an asset that anytime I need large portions of capital, that when I access it, it's tax-free. Tax-free, okay? Next, LTC. And this isn't a channel on the network or a channel on Roku or anything. LTC, it's going to be something, if you've not been hearing about it, you're going to hear about it more and more. And LTC stands for, I'm going to use a red one, long-term care. Long-term care. And this is something, even though all money matters, brings some level of emotive or emotions in play, right? So a lot of people move past the mind and a mindset being what determines what they do with money, and the emotive or the emotion overrides, okay, the thoughts or the mindset or the mind of the soul. They become emotionally driven, okay? And there's, of course, emotions involved in all of it, but this is very emotional because it reminds us of the frailty of life. It reminds us that it's appointed to every person, it's appointed for everyone to die, and then comes judgment, valuation for the life we've lived. And right now, statistically, 70 to 80% of people alive in our country is going to need some form of long-term care. Now, hopefully and thankfully to the Lord, I look young to you, but I'm older than you think. And I also dealt with these issues a little earlier than a lot of people do. I've already, on a personal story level, had to face this because I had to take care of my biological father for over a year, being responsible for millions and millions of dollars of surgeries, of medical decisions. It's a weight that you don't wish anybody has to have or make. And yet a lot of us will be forced to have to make such decisions. And it might not just be parents. It could be for some grandparents, or it could be a spouse. But 70 to 80% is going to have some type of long-term care. Now, what people don't realize is when it comes to long-term care, meaning care coming in the home to help someone with just the common everyday functions of living, or whether it's an actual home, someone leaves their home and goes to an assisted living, okay, a place where you pay for a person, a loved one, a parent, to live there and to be cared for, all right? Your health insurance don't pay for that, okay? Your Medicare don't pay for that. So it is a matter that 70% plus are going to face, and it's monetary, it's a money matter, and we need to have a mindset to be aware of that and to seek to prepare, okay? And so the power of this asset is it provides a long-term care rider with everyone that we put before a client or have a client purchase. And what that means is if someone can't do 2 of 6 of the daily functions of living, they can access the death benefit, which we've talked about before, okay? So remember, one of the powerful things about this asset too, it's got an additional bucket that's a multiplier of money, the death benefit. Based on how much you capitalize your system and based on the age when your system's capitalized and how long your asset, your system has to be in place determines how much multiplication of your money will happen, but you have a death benefit. And that death benefit can be accessed, a large majority percentage of it, before the person dies to fund and provide for long-term care, okay, without penalty and without taxes being incurred and it being considered income, okay? So that's another benefit. In fact, many clients that I talk to or serve now, maybe they've had their money in the market and they're getting older and they're having to take forced distributions, okay? So their money's got to reside somewhere else, okay? But also, later in life, they're dealing with, well, how do I prepare for care? Well, this asset solves so many money problems, provides solutions. $1 purchasing this contract purchases multiple jobs happening, or multiple needs being met or accomplished. It's the power of it. All right. So number 10, LTC, long-term care. And then lastly, that I want to put before us in this episode is, and it ties in to, is legacy. Now, if you've been following and listening, you've heard me say many times that why, to me, from a biblical lens and biblical worldview, why that death benefit bucket matters. Yes, of course, access to more capital and liquidity and me taking over the banking function of my life now matters tremendously. But also thinking long-term matters and death benefit. Why? Because I've said before, God revealed in Scripture says He was unashamed to be the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then, of course, Jacob had 12 sons, meaning God thinks multi-generational for momentum that leads to multiplication. Well, that brings in the issue of legacy. Okay? Legacy. Also, I want to, let's see if I can look it up. I'm going to give you the reference. I don't have it memorized. Hopefully you'll forgive me. Proverbs 13:22. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Notice that. The wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. Okay? Which is an interesting thing. We don't have time to talk about it, but sinner there is categorizing a person and their character, and their character is because of their mindset, and also because of the mindset of their money. Money flows away from them. They wasteful type living, like the story of the prodigal son, and that money ends up in the hands of one who through character has godly money mindset. But the first part of that verse is that what? A good man, a righteous man, leaves an inheritance to his children's children. It's grandchildren. It's 3 generations. Okay? Even in the New Testament, when it comes to discipleship. So I've taught for decades now. Paul told Timothy, his son in the faith, to find faithful persons who would find other men and to pass the pattern of sound teaching. The faith that was handed down once and for all to them. Multi-generation. Paul, Timothy, faithful persons who would find others. Same here, legacy. Okay? Legacy, to be able to pass on. Money that you received, but you had the ability to lay aside, right? Because you had overflow, you didn't have debt to the eyeballs, okay? That you didn't need necessarily in your lifetime, that can what? Continue to be a blessing to your lineage. That's legacy. And when it comes to long-term care and legacy, I want to speak about it for a moment. I've talked to several people here recently that, in last episode we mentioned it some, in the episode before, of why I encourage you to not just buy a term. Okay? Because I can show you that long-term if the money you were paying for the term, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, if you would have put that in a whole life, specially designed dividend paying with a mutual company, that you would actually get to keep all that money that's lost on the term, because you're not going to be able to hold term until the end of life. You would never want term to pay out. If term pays out, it means your life was cut short, and you died before you wanted to die. Okay, that's why 99% around never pays out, because it's sold as something that you don't want to be paid out. And then as you get closer, I talked with a client, potential client last week, whose term's running out. And I said, yeah, and what, if you were to continue it next year, how much would it? And he smiled and said, unaffordable. That's right, because it balloons the older you get in life. You can't afford term. Or if you would have put all that money in the beginning into whole life, you would not only keep every dollar that you use to secure and protect the value of your life, but that money would be earning all these other benefits. In the two episodes ago we looked at guaranteed rate of interest, compounding, uninterrupted, even when you access the value, you'd have all these other benefits as well. And then legacy, that money would actually be multiplied down to the next generation or beneficiaries. And you say, well, I don't have any beneficiaries. I'm never got married, or a spouse already passed away, didn't have children. Well, what about a nonprofit? What about an organization you believe in? You can make them the beneficiary of it. Then you'd have, imagine the amount of impact and multiplication of that money into people's hearts and lives. Okay? So legacy. My wife and I recently got, within the last couple of weeks, a horrible news that someone that was in our wedding, he was one of my groomsmen, passed away. And as devastating as that was to hear, my age, when I read the obituary, I was devastated even more. As someone that has obviously, in serving God's people, body of Christ, officiated many funerals, okay, for people, and read many obituaries, personally and publicly. When I read the obituary, and at the end it said, in lieu of flowers or donations, send money to the wife, the surviving spouse and family, it's gut-wrenching. What that means is, of course the death was untimely, but what it means is that there was not preparation. The value of life wasn't there. And now the wife and the kids got to scramble when, there's probably a mortgage on the house. There's probably car payments. There's, all kinds of things like that. This solves this. And here's another thing of why this is so important to me as a follower of Jesus, as a pastor, as an overseer of a nonprofit, as a church planner, whatever you want to call me, doesn't matter. My life demonstrates who and what I am in the Lord. But is this scripture. As hard as death is, and funerals are, what's some level of sort of the kick in the teeth? Like 1 Corinthians 15:26 says, the last enemy that will be destroyed is death. And the sting of death is sin. Death is that last enemy that's going to be destroyed. But when that enemy, death, touches one of our loved ones and people, and we have the sorrow and grief, isn't it good to be able to kick back in the face of death? When I leave, I get to kick back in the face of death to the sorrow and grief of my heirs and beneficiaries. Why? Because my life and the value of my life is going to be multiplied down to my beneficiaries. It's like a way to kick death. And I hope that not only you do it, but everybody in your family does it, and you have a whole legacy of people that keeps kicking death in the face by understanding this asset does all these other benefits, but it also does legacy and multiply of money. Well, here we have it. Episode 11. More benefits that $1 are initiating through a banking mentality, starting your own whole life, especially designed policy with the mutual company dividend paying accomplishes so many needs, solves so many problems, so many benefits. I'm Chad Craig. This is Money Mindsets Matter. Remember, if you're not preparing, you're not prepared. And if money don't matter, what's the matter? Like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. God bless you.